In Eastfield, it'll be 5 years in June. So my life before then, I wasn't married, no children. I was I was like 29, 30 years old. And just sort of, I was working in the nonprofit sector. So at that point, I worked with lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender youth who were runaways. So I worked in the nonprofit world helping at-risk youth. But I was also just like a single girl living in the city, like lived in Uptown and had a really fun social life and a rich work life. I had, kind of fresh out of grad school and making real money for the first time. I wouldn't say a lot of money, but real money so I could travel and go shopping without anxiety, So
was that after your master's?
Yes, it was right after my master's degree. Yeah.
What made you want to be a part of education?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay, so I know like people say they feel like they have a calling when they're little, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, like I always knew I wanted to be a doctor. I can't say I always knew I wanted to be a teacher, because I'm really not a teacher full time. But I did know from an early age that anytime I heard people talk about teaching or making a difference in people's lives, that it excited me. Like I felt like I would always do something that contributed to the world in a good way versus getting rich, if that makes sense. Because, I grew up really poor, and my mom was a teacher. She went to college while I was in grade school and became a teacher. And so I sort of grew up in this world of, in my early childhood, she would like take us to college with her and stuff. And so I remember being on a college campus a lot and thinking it was a really safe place. Because there was, we went to symphonies and we went to the plays and we went to the basketball games. And I remember feeling like it was a really positive environment. So I think that seed was planted early. But then I thought I was going to go into a few other things. So I experimented around with what I wanted to do, especially after my bachelor's degree, because I actually went into fashion for a little while and did PR work. But it felt vapid to me, like I didn't feel like I was making a difference. And so that's when I sort of realigned and came back to this idea of teaching or writing. I thought I was going to be a writer, but I have too much ADHD to sit still and write all day. There are days I can sit still and just write. But I had to figure out a way to sort of bring in all these different avenues together. Mm-hmm. And I still don't know what I'm going to do when I'm older. I don't really plan for myself.
In the classroom, you encourage students to speak up when they feel butterflies, like every single time you're like, oh, if you feel butterflies, you should speak up. And I was wondering why you did that.
I don't remember where that comes from. But I sometimes, maybe it's my own self-awareness. Sometimes when I'm sitting in a room and there's a speaker or a teacher, because I remember when I was in college, the teacher would ask the question, and for some reason, there are certain questions where I could feel my body getting hotter, like from the inside out. Like I could feel my body start to get hot and I would get butterflies. And it's because I had something to say about that question. And then there are times when they ask questions and you're just sort of like, bleh. So and then I read this article once in Vanity Fair with Madonna in it, right? And Madonna said, if you're nervous about something or you feel fear about it, that means you're supposed to do it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have that reaction. And so it was sort of like those two things together. I was like, man, so when I get butterflies, that's my gut or my conscience telling me I have something to say about this, or my opinion matters on this topic, or I have more questions about it. So I try to have students and myself and my peers think through, if my body's responding to something, it must mean that I care about it or that I want to express my opinion about it. And to learn how to push through that nervousness so that you can learn to own your voice.
What do you want your students to remember you by?
Oh, man. I think probably this many students will remember me. Like I've been teaching since 2004, so about 10, 11 years. And you never know who's going to remember you. I think that's something that is really funny, because when you teach, like I don't think I have that much authority or power in like my everyday life. But then students like you will come in and they'll quote me on something. I'm like, well, shit, I said that. I don't remember saying that. It was like a sentence that was really profound to them and like changed the way they thought. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that people would hang on to your words. Mm-hmm. So for me, I don't know if it's like something I want them to remember me by, more so than that I'm always myself. Like I try to be really genuine and authentic. I think people look at me and make a lot of assumptions about me, particularly just being a white girl with blonde hair and blue eyes. People are going to assume lots of things about me. And I think what I want people to remember is that you should never take someone at face value, and that the power of your community is right in the palm of your hand if you can like wake up, be alert, be present, and connect with the people around you. Because I was a student in a community college classroom just like you guys 15 years ago, you know, and I remember having a few professors that I hung on their words. And it's such a simple, organic process, like the relationship between teacher and student, but it can be really magical and profound, because as many moments you might have with professors, I have that with students, where I've worked with students and I can see them changing right before my eyes, or I get to help them get a scholarship or a job or an internship. And so it's just this, it's like the power of community in a really beautiful way. So I think if I wanted students to remember me by something, it would just be that one person can make a difference. But not in a selfish way. It's just that if you show up and give everything you have, that it's just sort of this magical thing that can happen all around us, and the world simultaneously becomes a better place in all these little different pockets. You know what I mean?